Ex-veteran was humiliated and shackled, but when they saw his name, they froze. The sound of chains echoed through the hallway as Raymond Johnson was pushed in his wheelchair. The heavy handcuffs hurt his already fragile wrists, but he kept his head held high, the faded military cap still firmly on his graying head. It was when they brought out that official document that everything changed. Director Victoria Barnes read the papers with disdain, ready to further humiliate the 78-year-old veteran in front of all the staff at Golden Horizons care home. But when her eyes landed on the full name on the documents, her face turned pale as if she'd seen a ghost. "This can't be," she murmured, her hands shaking as she held the paper. Raymond only smiled sadly, knowing the moment he'd tried so hard to avoid had finally arrived. 3 days earlier, everything had started differently. Golden Horizons care home, located in rural Pennsylvania, woke up to the news that expensive medications had gone missing from the stockroom. Victoria, an ambitious woman in her early 40s who had taken over as director just 6 months prior, was determined to find the culprit. "Someone is stealing our most expensive medications," she announced at the morning staff meeting, "and I'll find out who it is, even if I have to turn this place upside down." Sarah Miller, a 30-year-old nurse who had worked there for 5 years, felt a tightness in her chest. She knew every resident, every story, every pain in that place. The thought of someone being falsely accused worried her. "Director, maybe we should investigate more carefully," Sarah suggested. "It could have been a mistake in the inventory." "A mistake?" Victoria slammed her fist on the table. "These are medications that cost over $1,000 per box. That's not a mistake, it's deliberate theft." Raymond Johnson was in his room at that moment, gazing out the window at the garden where he used to spend his afternoons. Since arriving at the care home 3 years earlier, after a stroke left him partially paralyzed, he had kept to himself. He spoke little, smiled even less, but always treated everyone with kindness. Dorothy, a 75-year-old woman who lived in the room next door, was the only person he talked to regularly. They had known each other before the care home, when they were still neighbors in the Riverdale neighborhood of Pittsburgh. "Raymond, are you worried about something?" Dorothy asked that morning, noticing her friend's unusually serious expression. "Just thinking about life, Dorothy. The choices I made, the ones I didn't." She recognized that tone. Raymond carried a weight she had never fully understood, but she respected his silence. Victoria's investigation began systematically. She questioned staff, reviewed security footage, and monitored access to restricted areas. Sarah watched with growing unease, especially when she noticed the director seemed particularly fixated on certain residents. "Why are you focusing so much on the residents?" Sarah dared to ask. "Staff members also have access to the medications." "Staff I can control and fire," Victoria replied coldly. "But these old folks, they think they can do whatever they want just because they pay to be here." That answer made Sarah realize the kind of person she was dealing with. Victoria saw the elderly not as people deserving care and respect, but as an inconvenient burden. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. On the second night of the investigation, something happened that would change everything. The night guard, Jason Thompson, a 25-year-old working to pay for nursing school, was making his usual rounds when he heard noises coming from the pharmacy. He approached slowly and saw a figure in a wheelchair going through the medicine cabinets. It was Raymond Johnson. Jason froze for a moment, unsure what to do. He knew the veteran, respected his quiet dignity, but there he was, clearly taking medication from the supply. "Mr. Johnson?" he called softly. The elderly man turned slowly, showing no surprise or fear, just deep sadness. "Jason, my boy," Raymond said calmly. "I've been waiting for this moment to come. Are you taking the medicine?" Raymond nodded but offered no explanation. He only asked, "You need to call the director, I know, but just give me 5 minutes to put this away properly." Jason was confused. Raymond wasn't trying to hide or run. He almost seemed relieved to have been caught. "Mr. Johnson, maybe we can talk about this. If you need a specific medication, it's not for me, Jason, and I can't explain. Just When you call the director, ask her to bring my admission documents, all of them." That strange phrase echoed in Jason's mind as he called Victoria. Why did Raymond want her to bring his admission papers? And why did he seem so resigned, as if he knew exactly what would happen? Victoria arrived within minutes, accompanied by 2 security guards she had hired specifically for situations like this. When she saw Raymond with the medication beside his wheelchair, her eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "Finally," she said. "I thought it might be some desperate employee, but it's you, the respectable veteran. How many months have you been stealing from us?" "I'm not stealing," Raymond replied calmly. "I'm taking what's rightfully mine." Victoria laughed scornfully. "Rightfully yours. You pay your fees like everyone else here. That doesn't give you the right to steal expensive medication." It was then that Raymond made the request that puzzled everyone. "Bring my admission documents, all of them, including the sealed envelope in your safe." Victoria stopped laughing. How did he know about the sealed envelope? Every resident had basic paperwork, but some had special envelopes she had never bothered to open. "How do you know about—" "Bring the documents, Victoria. It's time for you to find out who's really being humiliated here." The way he said her name, without director or any title of respect, and the authority in his voice, stirred something in her memory. But it was impossible. It couldn't be. Sarah arrived then, called by Jason, who was clearly disturbed by the whole situation. Seeing Raymond surrounded by security while Victoria gestured angrily, she immediately stepped to the elderly man's side. "What's going on here?" Sarah asked. "Your dear veteran is a thief," Victoria declared. "He's been stealing medication. Now he wants to play games with paperwork." Sarah looked at Raymond, who remained serene, almost melancholy. There was something in his demeanor that didn't fit the situation. He didn't seem guilty or ashamed. He seemed tired, as if he'd been carrying a weight for too long and could finally set it down. "Mr. Johnson," Sarah said quietly, stepping closer, "do you want me to call a lawyer or your family?" "I have no family to call, Sarah, and a lawyer may not be necessary, but thank you for caring." Victoria grew impatient. "Enough drama. Let's handle this officially. Jason, call the police. I'll file a full report and—" "No." Raymond's voice echoed down the hall with unexpected strength. "Don't call the police, not yet. First, you bring those documents. After that, if you still want to humiliate me publicly, do as you see fit." There was something in the way he spoke that even made the security guards hesitate. It was a commanding voice, one used to being obeyed. Victoria felt a chill, but her ambition spoke louder. "All right, old man. I'll get your documents. But after that, you'll be exposed to everyone here as the thief you are." As Victoria walked away to fetch the papers, Dorothy appeared in the hallway. At 75, she walked slowly but with determination. When she saw the situation, her eyes filled with tears. "Raymond," she whispered. "Is it time?" "It is, Dorothy. We can't hide it anymore." Sarah looked from one to the other, sensing there was a much bigger story unfolding. "Hide what? What are you talking about?" Dorothy glanced at Raymond, who gave a slight nod. "Sarah, you've known Raymond for 3 years, but I've known him for over 20, and I know he has never in his entire life done anything dishonest." "Then why was he taking the medications?" "Because," Dorothy's trembling voice barely came out, "he's been caring for someone. Someone he never told anyone about." Jason, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. "Caring for who? Where?" It was Raymond who answered, his voice heavy with years of secrecy. "My daughter. She's in the abandoned annex of the building. She has severe cerebral palsy. She's been there for 3 years ever since I arrived, and I've been taking care of her alone because I didn't want anyone to know." The silence that followed was broken only by the echo of Victoria's footsteps returning down the hallway, carrying a folder full of documents and a sealed envelope she clearly had never opened. "Here are your documents," she said sarcastically. "Now explain how this justifies your theft." Raymond didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at each person present: Sarah, Jason, Dorothy, the two security guards, and finally, Victoria. "Open the sealed envelope," he said simply. Victoria impatiently broke the seal and pulled out several old documents. She began reading the first, then the second. When she reached the third document, her legs went weak. "This can't be true," she murmured. "Read it aloud," Raymond urged, "so everyone knows." With a trembling voice, Victoria began. "Deed of donation for the land where Golden Horizons care home was built, donated in 1995 by..." She paused, swallowed hard, and continued. "By Raymond Thomas Johnson, war veteran, for the construction of a home for the elderly in need, under the condition that the donor and his family receive priority care when necessary." The silence was deafening. Sarah felt her legs weaken. Jason opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The security guards exchanged glances, unsure how to react. "Keep reading," Raymond said calmly. "The donor retains the right to oversee and use resources when necessary for the care of family members with special needs." Victoria could barely form the words. "Now read the last document," Raymond requested. Victoria picked up the paper with shaking hands. "Birth certificate of Emily Thomas Johnson, born March 15, 1980, daughter of Raymond Thomas Johnson and..." Her voice faltered. "And Susan Johnson Davis, who passed away in childbirth," Raymond finished. "Emily was born with severe cerebral palsy. For 25 years, I took care of her alone. When I had the stroke and couldn't work anymore, I used all my retirement to pay for her caregivers. When the money ran out, I remembered this property I had donated years ago, thinking I'd never need it." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Mr. Johnson, has Emily been here for 3 years? In the abandoned annex. I asked to be admitted here not because I needed care for myself, but because it was the only way to stay close to her. Every day when you all think I'm resting in my room, I go take care of my daughter." Jason finally managed to say, "But the medications? Emily needs expensive medication to control her seizures and pain. I wasn't stealing. According to the donation deed, I have the right to use this place's resources to care for her. But I didn't want anyone to know, because..." His voice faltered for the first time. "Because what, Raymond?" Sarah asked gently. "Because I'm ashamed. Ashamed to have a disabled daughter and not have been able to give her the life she deserved. Ashamed to have used an old deed to secure a place for the two of us. Ashamed to have lied to all of you about not having family." Dorothy stepped closer and took his hand. "Raymond, my dear friend, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You're the most devoted father I've ever known." Victoria was in shock. But you're the owner of this place. Legally, I'm the primary benefactor and have supervisory rights, but I never wanted to use that. I just wanted a safe place for Emily. Why didn't you tell me when I took over as director?" Raymond looked at her sadly. "Because in your first days here, I overheard you talking to the secretary about how some seniors were just a burden, and that you wanted to modernize this place by removing the problem cases. I was afraid you'd send Emily away." The conversation Victoria had 6 months ago came back to her like a punch to the gut. She had indeed said those words, thinking no one was listening. Sarah wiped her tears and made a decision. "I want to meet Emily. Now." She's not doing well today," Raymond hesitated. "She's been having seizures since yesterday. That's why I needed the medication so urgently." "That's why you were there in the middle of the night," Jason realized. "You were desperate to help your daughter." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like the video and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. "Let's go to her," Sarah said firmly. "All of us. And if she needs urgent medical care, we'll arrange it." Victoria was still processing the information. I didn't know if I had." "What would you have done?" Raymond asked. "Treated me with more respect because I'm the landowner, or tried to use me to secure more donations?" The question hit Victoria hard because she knew she likely would have chosen the latter. The group made their way to the abandoned annex of the building. It was an older section, originally built as a separate infirmary but deactivated when the new facilities were constructed. Raymond led the way in his wheelchair, showing how he had adapted the route to get there every day. "I clean this path every morning," he explained, "and installed some lights with Dorothy's help. She's the only one who knew everything." When they reached the annex door, Raymond paused. "Before we go in, I want you to know Emily doesn't speak, doesn't walk, and looks much younger than her actual age, but she understands everything, and she knows who loves her." He opened the door, and everyone was surprised by what they saw. The space was clean, organized, and clearly adapted for special care. There was a hospital bed, improvised feeding equipment, and several chairs where Raymond obviously spent hours tending to his daughter. Emily was asleep but visibly restless. Even at 45, she looked like a teenager, small and fragile. Raymond approached and tenderly stroked her face. "Daddy's here, Emily, and I've brought good people to meet you." Sarah approached slowly, her experience as a nurse helping her quickly assess the patient's condition. "Mr. Raymond, she has a fever. And from the muscle contractions, she must be in pain." "I know. That's why I needed those medications. Last night was very hard." "Why didn't you call me?" Sarah was emotional. "I could have helped." "Because I was afraid they'd find out and separate us." Jason watched the interaction between father and daughter, seeing the pure love that existed there. "Mr. Raymond, you've been taking care of her alone for 3 years, every single day?" "Every day. Dorothy helps when she can, but she's elderly too. I give the medications myself, do the physical therapy I learned from books, bathe her, feed her, everything." Victoria was silent, watching. For the first time in a long while, she found herself confronted with something her ambition couldn't explain or control: unconditional love. That man had given his entire life to care for a daughter who could never repay him in a traditional way, and yet, there he was, 3 years after her stroke, still tending to her. "Emily needs professional medical care," Sarah said after examining the young woman more closely. "I can help, but we need to move her to a proper area of the home, with the right equipment." She can stay?" Raymond hardly dared to ask. "Of course she can," Sarah answered before Victoria could speak. "In fact, she should have always been here. This place was donated exactly for cases like this." Victoria finally found her voice. I'm sorry. For everything. For how I treated you, for the humiliation, for not understanding." "You didn't know," Raymond interrupted. "But now you do. The question is, what will you do with that information?" It was a question that would change the course of many lives. Victoria looked around, seeing Sarah's dedication, Jason's loyalty, Dorothy's genuine friendship, and the pure love between Raymond and Emily. She had a choice to make. "What I'll do," she said slowly, "is ask for your help. Your help to transform this place into what it was truly meant to be. A place where people like Emily don't have to be hidden, where fathers like you don't have to be ashamed, and where caregivers like Sarah can do the work that really matters." Raymond looked at her in surprise. "You're serious?" "I am, but only if you agree to work with me officially, as an advisor, as a guardian of this place's original values, and if Emily accepts the care she deserves, openly, with full dignity." Emily chose that moment to open her eyes. Her gaze went straight to her father, then moved to each new face around her. When Sarah stepped closer and smiled, Emily tried to smile back. "She likes you," Raymond told Sarah. "Emily's always been good at sensing good people." "And I already like her," Sarah replied. "In fact, I'd like to be her primary nurse if you'll allow it." "Allow it?" Raymond laughed for the first time in years. "Sarah, it'd be a gift from God." Jason stepped forward. "And I'd like to help too. I'm studying nursing precisely so I can care for people in need. Could this be my internship project?" Dorothy was crying with happiness. "Raymond, do you see? You're not alone anymore." "I was never alone, Dorothy. I always had you, and I always had Emily. But now I have a bigger family." The following days brought a complete transformation at Golden Horizons Care Home. Emily was moved to a proper room near her father's with all the necessary equipment. Sarah organized a routine of professional care, but always made sure Raymond remained her primary caregiver. Victoria, truly changed by the experience, began implementing reforms that honored the original spirit of Raymond's donation. She created a program for families with disabilities, improved staff training, and established protocols for respect and dignity. Jason became not just an intern, but an advocate for seniors' rights, especially those with complex histories. He developed a system so no resident would need to hide special needs or family circumstances. Dorothy gained a new unofficial role, storyteller. She became the person who helped new residents feel at home, sharing that everyone there had a valuable story. But the biggest change was in Emily. With proper care, regular medication, and most importantly, the relief of secrecy, she began showing signs of improvement. Her seizures decreased, she slept better, and even tried to communicate more. "She's responding to the positive environment," Sarah explained to Raymond. "When you were stressed and hiding her, it affected her care. Now with a whole team helping and you more at ease, she feels the difference." "Do you think she understands she doesn't have to be hidden anymore?" Raymond asked. "I'm sure she does. Look how she smiles when others enter the room." It was true. Emily had developed a special way of greeting each staff member. For Sarah, she'd try to raise her hand. For Jason, she'd blink. For Dorothy, she'd make a soft sound everyone learned to recognize as joy. 3 months after the discovery, Golden Horizons Care Home received a special visit. Dr. Richard Wilson, a neurologist from Pittsburgh who had heard about Emily's case, came to evaluate her condition. "It's remarkable," he said after examining Emily. "I rarely see such significant improvement in patients with her level of cerebral palsy. What are you doing differently?" "Love," Raymond answered simply, "and a team that truly cares." Dr. Richard smiled. "Love really is the best medicine, but you're also doing everything right medically. Sarah, your work here is exceptional." "I learned from the best teacher," Sarah said, pointing to Raymond. 45 years of dedication teach more than any college." The doctor then made an unexpected suggestion. "I'd like to propose you document this case. Emily's improvement and this care home's transformation could serve as a model for other institutions." "Document how?" Victoria asked. "An academic article on the impact of integrated family care in institutional settings, and perhaps a training program for other care homes." Raymond grew thoughtful. "If this can help other families avoid what we went through, I'm in." "Great. But there's one condition. Raymond must be involved as the lead consultant. His experience is irreplaceable." And so began a new chapter in Raymond's life. At 78, he became a consultant for multiple institutions, helping families facing similar situations. Emily always accompanied him on visits when possible, serving as a living example that love and proper care make a difference. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. A year later, Raymond received a letter that moved him deeply. It was from a family in New York City who had read about his work. "Mr. Johnson, we're the parents of Michael, 22, who also has cerebral palsy. We read your story and cried with relief, knowing we're not alone. Please help us find a place where Michael can be cared for with dignity if anything happens to us. Signed, Jennifer and Robert Davis." "Sarah," Raymond called, "I think we have more work ahead." "We always do," she smiled, "and we always will. But now we have a full team." Emily, who was in Dorothy's arms at that moment, made her happy sound as if agreeing. Victoria approached holding a document. "Raymond, I want to show you something. I just got approval to expand the program. We're going to build a new wing specialized in care for people with disabilities." "With what resources?" he asked. "With the funds you've been generating through consulting, plus some donations from families who heard our story." "Can't?" She hesitated. "And what?" "And part of my salary. I decided I don't need to earn so much if it means I can make a bigger difference." Raymond looked at her with renewed respect. "Victoria, you've really changed. You taught me that leading isn't about giving orders, it's about serving. and it's about caring for those in need. Jason joined the group. And I have news too. I passed the medical school entrance exam. I want to specialize in neurology so I can help more people like Emily. Jason, Sarah hugged him. That's wonderful. And will you keep working here while you study? Asked Raymond. If you'll allow me. This place has become my school of life. Dorothy smiled. Raymond, do you see what happened? You tried to hide Emily to protect her, but in the end, she's the one who brought all these blessings into our lives. It was true. Emily's presence had transformed not just Golden Horizons care home, but the lives of everyone who had heard her story. Sarah had become a more compassionate nurse. Jason had discovered his calling. Victoria had learned the true meaning of leadership, and Dorothy had found new purpose at 75. But perhaps the most important transformation had been Raymond's own. After years of carrying the weight of responsibility and shame alone, he finally understood that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. Emily, he said to his daughter one sunny afternoon as they sat in the care home's garden, Daddy learned something important. We don't have to carry our burdens alone. When we share them with good people, the weight gets lighter and love grows stronger. Emily looked at him with those eyes that always understood everything and smiled. It was a small smile, but filled with a happiness even cerebral palsy couldn't hide. Just then, a van arrived with a new family. It was the Davises from New York City, who had finally decided to visit Golden Horizons after months of correspondence. That must be Michael, said Sarah, watching a young man in a wheelchair being helped out of the van. And those must be his parents, added Jason, observing a couple in their 50s looking around with nervous hope. Raymond took a deep breath. Emily, how about we meet our new family? Over the following months, Golden Horizons became known throughout Pennsylvania as a model of inclusive care. Families from different states began seeking guidance, and some even moved to the area to be near this supportive environment. Michael Davis adapted well to his new life and developed a special friendship with Emily. Though neither of them could speak, they created their own way of communicating that moved everyone. It's amazing how they understand each other, Jennifer Davis remarked to Raymond. Michael had never shown so much interest in interacting with anyone else. Emily changed too after Michael arrived, Raymond agreed. It's like she found a brother. Robert Davis, who had initially resisted the idea of leaving his son in a care home, now visited daily and even helped with other residents. Raymond, I want to apologize for doubting you at first. I thought you'd treat Michael like a number, like other places did. Robert, you were protecting your son, I understand completely. I did the same with Emily for years. But the difference is you never stopped caring for her personally. And you don't have to either. Michael is your son. We're just helping you care for him in the best way possible. This philosophy became the motto of the new Golden Horizons care home. No one replaces family, we just strengthen it. Dr. Richard Wilson returned 6 months later to check on Emily and Michael's progress and was amazed by the results. Raymond, the medical data is astounding. Emily's seizures have decreased by 80%, and Michael's motor coordination has improved significantly. You're revolutionizing institutional care. It's not us, doctor. It's the power of community. When everyone feels responsible for each other's well-being, miracles happen. Speaking of miracles, I have a proposal. The university wants to establish a research center in partnership with you to scientifically study what's happening here and replicate it elsewhere. Victoria's eyes lit up. Would that mean funding for more expansions? Exactly. And it would also mean your story could be shared nationwide. How many families could be helped if they knew a place like this existed? Raymond looked at Emily, who was in Dorothy's arms, then at Michael, who was trying to draw with Jason's help, and finally at the entire community that had formed around them. Doctor, I accept on one condition. Any research done here must include families as partners, not just subjects. Of course. In fact, we were thinking of offering research grants to relatives who want to study the topic. Imagine Robert getting a master's in family care. Robert Davis nearly dropped his coffee cup. Me, getting a master's at 52? Why not? Sarah smiled. You have 22 years of hands-on experience with Michael. That's worth more than any degree. The idea excited not just Robert, but also Jennifer, who had always dreamed of returning to school, and even Dorothy, who at 75 decided it was never too late to learn. I guess we'll need to build a library, Victoria joked. And a computer lab, Jason added, so everyone can participate in online research. And a workshop space, Sarah suggested, to train other professionals. Raymond watched the excitement with a smile. In just months, what had begun as his desperate attempt to hide Emily had become a quiet revolution changing lives across the region. 2 weeks later, an official letter arrived from the Department of Health and Human Services. Golden Horizons had been selected as the pilot project for a national inclusive care program. What exactly does this mean? Dorothy asked. Victoria read aloud. It means federal funding to implement our model in 10 different states, and Raymond has been named the program's national consultant. National consultant? Raymond was stunned. But I'm just a father who learned to care for his daughter. That's exactly why, said Dr. Richard, who was present for the meeting. You didn't learn from textbooks. You lived it for decades, and most importantly, you proved it's possible. Emily chose that moment to let out her happiest sound yet, louder and clearer than ever. Everyone laughed, taking it as a firm "I agree." I think Emily approves, Sarah said. Emily was always the wisest of us all, Raymond replied. She knew one day we wouldn't have to hide anymore. Jason, now in his second year of medical school, made an observation that moved everyone. Raymond, do you realize Emily has saved far more lives than just her own? She saved hers, mine, Sarah's, Victoria's, Michael's parents, Dorothy's. She's a silent hero. She always was, Raymond agreed, stroking his daughter's face. I was just slow to understand. The national program was officially launched a year later, at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. Raymond didn't want to go, but the whole team insisted. Dad, you have to go, said Sarah. Actually, can I call you Dad? You've become a father figure to all of us. Raymond was moved. Of course you can, my child. You're all my chosen family. And is Emily coming with us? Asked Jason. Yes, Emily is coming. She's the real star of this story. The ceremony in Washington, D.C. was emotional. Raymond spoke on behalf of all families facing similar situations, with Emily by his side, calm and smiling. 5 years ago, Raymond said into the microphone, I thought loving my daughter meant hiding her from the world. Now I know love means showing the world how special she is, and fighting so other families don't have to go through what we did. The audience rose in applause, but Raymond continued, But I want to make it clear none of this would have been possible without the team that formed around us. Sarah, who brought knowledge and compassion, Jason, who brought energy and determination, Victoria, who had the courage to change when she recognized her mistakes, Dorothy, who brought wisdom and friendship, and all the other families who joined us. When they returned to Pennsylvania, they were welcomed as local heroes. The mayor declared the day Family Inclusion Day, and several schools asked Raymond to speak to the students. Uncle Raymond, an 8-year-old asked during one talk, why were you ever ashamed of Emily? She seems cool. The innocent question touched Raymond deeply. You know, little one, sometimes adults fear things children accept naturally. You're wiser than us. Can I meet Emily? Of course you can. She loves making new friends. These school visits became regular. Emily became a minor celebrity among local children, who often visited and invented new ways to play with her. It's funny, Sarah remarked to Raymond. Children never see disability, they just see someone who needs love. Maybe that's the greatest lesson Emily taught us, Raymond reflected. That what matters isn't what we can do, but how much we can love and be loved. 3 years into this journey, Golden Horizons Care Home had become far more than a care facility. It was a model center, a school of inclusion, a laboratory of practical love. Michael had started painting with his mouth, and his works adorned every wall. Emily learned to use a blinking communication system for basic conversations. Robert completed his master's and became a college professor. Jennifer opened a consulting service for families of people with disabilities. Jason was in his final year of medical school, specializing in neurology. Sarah became nursing director of the expanded center. Victoria was promoted to regional superintendent of the national program. And Dorothy, at 78, decided to write a book about all the stories she'd witnessed. Raymond, Dorothy said one Sunday afternoon as they watched Emily and Michael in the garden, surrounded by visiting children. Remember that day I thought you'd be thrown out of here? I do. Feels like a lifetime ago. And remember how desperate you were, thinking you'd lost everything? I remember perfectly. I thought I'd lose Emily, my dignity, everything. And now look. Dorothy gestured at the lively scene around them. You didn't lose anything. You gained a huge family. Raymond smiled as he watched Sarah adjust Emily's equipment, Jason explaining medicine to Michael, Victoria organizing the visitation schedule, and dozens of other people who were now part of their lives. You know, Dorothy, I think Emily always knew this would happen. She was never in a rush for me to stop feeling ashamed. She just waited, with that endless patience only she has, until I was ready to share her with the world. And now the whole world is better for knowing Emily. At that moment, Emily let out her happy sound, louder than ever, as if agreeing with the whole conversation. I think she's saying we're right, Raymond laughed. Or maybe she's saying there's still a lot of work ahead, Dorothy suggested. And there really was. That week, a new family would arrive, and the next, a group of international students would come to study the Pennsylvania model of family inclusion. The work never ended, but neither did the joy. Raymond looked at Emily and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart, for teaching me that hiding was never protection. Real protection is surrounding ourselves with people who love us just as we are." Emily blinked twice, her code for "I love you too," and smiled that smile that had won over an entire country. End of story. Dear listeners, what did you think of this story of resilience and unconditional love? Raymond taught us that sometimes what we think is our greatest weakness can become our greatest strength. Share with us, have you ever experienced a situation where family love overcame all obstacles? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.